Hey guys, got a question for you. How many of you guys think you understand God's love language? God's love language. I'm in Romans and I've been studying it for the last couple of weeks now, and I'm in Romans 10 at this point. And I'm gonna read a couple of scriptures to you, and then we'll get into um, our discussion about it. But let's start it. Let's go back to Romans uh, 1. Dear brothers and sisters, The longing of the longing of my heart and my prayer to God is for people of Israel to be saved. I know what enthusiasm they have for God, but it is a misdirected zeal. For they don't understand God's way of making people right with Himself. Refusing to accept God's way, they cling to their own way of getting right with God by trying to keep the law. For Christ has already accomplished the purpose for which the law was given. As a result, all who believe in Him are made right with God. For Moses writes that the law's way of making a person right with God requires obedience to all His commands. But faith's way of getting right with God says, don't say in your heart who will go up to heaven to bring Christ down to earth, and don't say who will go down to the place of the dead to bring Christ back to life again. In fact, it says, the message is very close at hand. It is on your lips and in your heart. And that message is the very message about faith that we preach. If you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised Him from the dead, you will be saved. Do you understand God's love language? I've often said many times when it comes to relation goals and um, counseling sessions, when you were in talking with couples, my question is always, and there's actually been books written about understanding your mate's love language. More specifically, sometimes we find ourselves doing what's comfortable to us to please the person or your mate, your wife, your husband, but that's not what they're asking for. So there tends to be a lot of frustration that's built up because you can work very diligently in doing things, being busy, um, that have no effect for what you're trying to achieve. More specifically, um, I've often said to my wife, sweetie, I don't like flowers. You like flowers. So if you're trying to make me happy, do what I like. If you're trying to make me happy, don't bring me flowers. Does that make sense? So if we often get into discussions about, how because we tend to want to do things that's comfortable to us for others and expect them to like it and accept it and be gratified and happy with that. We're actually trying to force our beliefs or our intentions or our laziness on the other person. When they're saying, hey, that's good and all, it's not what I like. Well, I'm saying all of to say this is kind of what's going on here in throughout Romans, um, but more specifically with the scriptures I just read. Here we have the Israelites, and Paul is speaking on their behalf, and he's talking about how they're really not they're abiding by the law with the expectation that's making God happy. And God said, no, that's not what I'm asking for. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm looking for you to believe in me, have faith in me, declare openly with your own mouth. See, sometimes it's easy just to go down a checklist and say, yep, I did this, I did that, through all 10 commandments, the law, the Torah, and go through and look at all this busy work that we're doing. And he said, yeah, I get all that, but no, you can do all that and not believe. It's called being religious. You can do all these things and not even scratch the surface of God's love language. So there's a very good chance that you could be spending a lot of time doing a lot of things and be a very good person and go to hell. That's what we're saying here. Pretty much, we think just because we've served in church, I sing on praise team, and I clean after church. Oh yes, every now and then I bring a message, and all these things that we can do in the church. All I give to the needy. I just freely gave them the other day some money, or I gave, we're doing all these things. And he's saying, what I need you to do is believe in me and declare openly who I am to you. We tend to believe just because I bring home some flowers, or I cooked you dinner last night, and I washed the clothes over the weekend, and I keep the car detailed for you, and I put gas in your car, that's the same as me saying, baby, I believe in you. I love you with all my heart. No, those are duties. Those are things you need to do anyway. Those are things you need to do anyway. That's not what I'm asking for. God said, you know what? Those things, to not kill your fellow man, you need to do that anyway. To not backbite, you need to do that anyway. To not lie and scheme and steal from your neighbor, you need to do that anyway. You're not doing me any favors by doing what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do that. The law is just a guide to show you what the expectations are. That's good. You're supposed to do that. But here we're talking about, how do you make me happy? Yes, those things make me happy. You're supposed to do that. But hearing that you love me, seeing that you're openly professing your love for me and believing in me, is what he's looking for. It's the same thing we're looking for. That I appreciate that more than anything else, from my wife to appreciate me, to openly declare her love for me, to believe in me more so than me caring about whether or not she washed clothes or any of the many tasks that we're all do for each other anyway. Does that make sense? So I think I hear what I'm getting out of this passage of scripture. What is God trying to say? Listen, give me what I'm asking for. I don't ask for much. How many times have you've had that discussion with your spouse? I don't ask for much. You're asking me to give you kudos and brownie points for stuff that you ought to be doing anyway. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking for your heart and your lips to declare who I am. That's what God's saying. It's a very simple concept, but we get it mixed up. It trips us up because we can get caught in the things of life. We wake up in the morning, our feet hit the ground, we're dropping the kids off, we're going to work, we're preparing lunches, we're preparing dinners, we're making phone calls, we're handling business, we're keeping the ball moving, we're doing all those things that we have to do. And at what point are we stopping to acknowledge him? At what point are we giving him the first fruits of our day? I'm guilty, guys. At what point are we saying, before I do anything else, I'm going to acknowledge you. I'm going to give you all the praise and glory that's due to you, because you're the very reason that I woke up right now in my right mind and I'm able to put my feet on the ground and stand. At that point, when we're able to do that, we need to get on our knees and bow and thank him. At what point, once again, at what point do we stop on our day and acknowledge him? You can get very much caught up in the rigors of the day and the night, the softball games, the football games, the children's activities, making sure that your spouse is happy, making sure that there's a whole lot of things that we can do that are all good things and are all things that we need to do. But what does that have to do with us showing our love to him? See, this is where idols can be created subtle. We look at idols as, oh, I'm worshiping and I'm bowing down to a golden calf. Sometimes the idols are, and most of the times the idols are anything that we put above God. Like your job, like your wife, like your husband, like your children, like your career, like your church. Hear me. If we put any of those things, or anything else that you can think of, we put any of those things above God, it can be considered an idol. So I just say these things to make you aware. God is he's very simple. He's asking for a very specific thing. And just because you go out of your way to do all this stuff, he's like, okay, yeah, that's great. That's not what I'm asking for.